Blazing What Ifs here, blazing his way into another video. This is What If Deku Had the Boosted Gear Part 2. So yeah, let's just get into it. There are a few things in Deku's past that I haven't mentioned, and so I'll explain them as they become prevalent in the story. But he has met two people on the devil's side. He's met a few of the higher-ups on the fallen angel side, as well as several of the archangels. I'll explain them more as, they become prevalent in the story, as I said. But for now, just know that it happens. I'll get into the interactions that they had later when it becomes prevalent, basically. But today they're at school. Izuku knows all the devils at the school. He knows who the devils are. He can pick them out rather easily. But he pretends not to notice. But one day, he wants to test his abilities. Because Izuku is pretty good at tactics, as he's studied his family line for quite some time, and knows, the way of the samurai. He didn't study how to fight, in the same way the samurais do. But he did study, so he doesn't, fight like a samurai. But he does know, a lot about his family lineage and about tactics that they used as well. Because Izuku isn't the kind of person to go into something in brute strength his way through. He's tactical. He's smart. So, he wants to test because he's heard that the school council president, the student body president, is a good strategist as well in terms of chess. Which chess is a really good test of strategy. It's like what people used to use in order to, plan out actual strategies in real life. I think that's how they used chess. That's back in the olden days. It makes sense in my mind, anyway. But, so he challenges her to a chess match. And Sona, not being cocky, knows that, he's probably pretty good. If he's willing to challenge her, then he's probably pretty good, and she'd be treated as such. So she's gonna go into this with everything she has. And anyway, I don't know what a good amount of moves is before getting someone into checkmate, so I'm just gonna say after a good 50 or so moves, I think that's a decent amount of moves. Izuku places his final piece and says, "Checkmate." And Sona is like, wait, hold on. Is looking down in disbelief. But she's not like going crazy or like, what the heck? She's just looking down in disbelief. Nothing more. For those of you who don't know, who haven't read the light novel, I don't think they explained in the anime, but Sona made a deal with her father. And as Izuku wins, he's like, well, I guess I'm better then. And he shakes her hand and says, good match, very sportsman. And he leaves and goes about the rest of his day. And Sona calls her father. And they talk about the deal that she made with her father, and was that if a man ever beat her in a game of chess, that she would marry him. And she's one to keep her deals. Now, when that'll happen, when this will actually start taking effect, who knows? But we definitely know that one kid, man. If you didn't know, there's that one guy in Sona's peerage that wants to marry her. Like, that's his goal, to get strong enough to be able to beat Sona and marry her. He ain't gonna be too happy about it. But yeah. But moving on. Izuku continues about his day, and eventually meets his friends out near the old school building, and he knows that, and he's just talking to them. They're talking about random things like video games they've played, which are mostly ecchi games. I mean, Izuku plays more games like Bloodborne and Call of Duty, third-person and first-person shooters. And, more brutal games. But he can't really talk about those to his friends because they don't play them as much. Or at all. Because they're only playing edgy games or watching porn. Because that's just who they are. And so instead he's just contemplating why he's still friends with these people. Maybe it's because all of the other people are just in it for the fact that he's called the Dark Prince of the school. Or perhaps it's that, and because of that, they're all just wanting to be friends with him, for other reasons, other motives. They're just fake friends, and Izuku's not about that. Like, I don't want to be friends if it's just so that you get something out of it. He's not that kind of person. You know what I'm saying? He's not the kind of person to do that. So, Izuku doesn't have any friends other than those two. Because all the other people are just in it, for the fake friendship. but he then feels someone watching him as he looks up to see a beautiful crimson-haired woman staring at him from the second floor of the building. He also looked up at her. She was beautiful. Izuku had seen what she could do from his connections in the world of devils. He knows a lot about her character. He knows that she is kind to the people that deserve it, rude to the people that don't. Well, it's kind of like him, which is what caught his interest about her. She also had a power of destruction, though she didn't have as much control of it as he did, as he could basically use his power of destruction to sever someone's soul from their body, much like a Grim Reaper would use their scythe to sever one's soul's connection to their body. His control of the power of destruction was beyond what is physical. But he doesn't use the power of destruction often. He doesn't see a need to use it. Only people that were truly strong ever made him use the power of destruction. Such as the time he met with Orphis and her so-called Chaos Brigade, who were trying to recruit him. But he decided against it. He rather liked the devils that he had connections to, who happened to be two of the new great devils, the new Maos. Two of the 4 new Maos that took place of the old ones after they had died. And he didn't want to ruin that relationship. He was the kind of person to work all sides, but he knew if he had joined the Chaos Brigade, he wouldn't be able to work any of the other sides, so he decided against it. Orphis was saddened by this, as she could sense the power of her creator within him, as he had already awakened it by the time she had come to speak with him. But instead decided to leave, as she knew he would probably be just as stubborn, I speak English, just as stubborn as her creator was. She wanted some semblance of family, I guess you could call it. But her creator wasn't family to her, but she wasn't familiar with human feelings. She didn't know what to call it. So family was the closest thing that she could call to it, but it wasn't what it was. That's not what she was feeling. But she couldn't put her finger on it. And with her blank face that even Izuku couldn't read, he couldn't even tell. He could not tell either. They moved on. She left, he continued on with his life. That's how that interaction went. Izuku then, still staring at her, all these memories of the person that he's seen her be, the competent leader who's inexperienced. Although inexperienced, shows much potential. She's kind. She doesn't force her servants to do anything that they don't want to. In fact, she gains their loyalty through her actions, not her words. And that's what Izuku liked about her. She didn't just try to convince people to join her peerage, become her servants with her words. She proved to them why she is the master, why she is worthy of their loyalty. Izuku liked that. But let's do, and so when one of his compatriots on the devil's side, one of his acquaintances, let's say, on the devil's side, asked him if he would help her become stronger. He didn't agree at first. He wanted to see how far she could go without his help. But then Lucifer, Sir Zex, because if you haven't guessed it by now, yes, Sir Zex Lucifer is who this is. One of his acquaintances that he's spoken to on the devil's side. Told him finer details about how she would be forced to marry someone just for political reasons, for the quote-unquote continuation of a pure devil line. Izuku didn't like this. The idea of being forced to marry someone was bullshit. Like, in all honesty, it was bullshit. Izuku didn't ask why he couldn't do anything. Izuku knew that Lucifer had an extremely high standing in society and shouldn't be forcing his ideals onto others. Doing so would probably the rest of Devil Society would probably strip him of his title as Lucifer, because as it goes in Devil Society, you have to earn it. And if the rest of the devils don't believe you deserve it, then they will find someone else who does deserve the title of Lucifer, if you know what I mean. So, things went on. So, he's remembering this. He's remembering how he said he would, but he'd only obey if she could prove to him that she was deserving of his loyalty. And Lucifer agreed, thinking that his little sister would be able to do so. Sorry if you heard that. No, who am I kidding? You definitely heard that. But, yeah. So, moving on. That happens. Rias then talks to a beautiful raven-haired girl. It's interesting. Her hair was tied up in a ponytail. They seemed close. And they were talking about the boy, but what was more interesting is she knew his name. Now, I know what you're saying, he's pretty popular at the school, yes, but he's popular by the name of the Dark Prince. Not by his actual name, because most people just call him the Dark Prince. It's assuming that you'll know who they're talking about. Like, he doesn't need a name at all. His title is enough. Izuku didn't like that, but he didn't show any malice towards anyone who called him that. But her raven-haired friend knew his actual name, which was interesting. Not that Izuku heard her, but it was strange nonetheless. They then start to talk about the boy while playing chess. Rias then easily won within a few more moves. It was before taking a shower in the, shower that was in the club room that they seemed to be in. Weird. Rather strange if you were to ask anyone else, but hey, that's how they did things. So, they moved on. With their day, Izuku left. And as he was going home, he was on a bridge when he was approached by a woman. A woman of black hair. Adorable. Really, she was adorable. The way she was acting, though, also adorable, but you could tell she was faking it. Izuku could tell she was lying. The fact that she knew his name, the fact that the school uniform that she was wearing, he didn't recognize, and he recognized every school uniform in the area. She'd already messed up. She was given a mission. She reeked of the stench of a fallen angel. Of certain fallen angel that he knew very well. That he knew she definitely had to have gotten her orders directly from. fallen angel named Kokobio. An asshole. Izuku always avoided him whenever contacting fallen angels, making sure that Kokobio never knew anything about his powers or who he really was. Izuku recognized almost immediately that Kokobio was definitely trying something. And it involved him. In one way or another. Was it because he had the boosted gear? Chances of that were high. But he decided to play along. Saying, fine, I'll play along with her little game, he said to himself, in his head, as she did a fake love confession. And he agreed. He'd read his act much, much better than hers. Not even the small, well, white-haired, petite girl watching from the shadows could tell that he was faking it. They both said their goodbyes and separated. He walked home. The fallen angel went back to the abandoned church. But little did she know, Izuku's plan was already in action. He'd placed that spell, the slave crest spell that he had on him, that shown the picture, the image, I should say, of the red dragon emperor's symbol. And he branded her with it. She didn't even realize that he had done so. The white girl who was watching from the shadows didn't even realize he did so. He did it so subtly. Izuku was the patient type. The type that was willing to wait for everything to come together. That's the type of person he was. And he was willing to wait for this. He's the type of person who held back a lot in a fight. Right? Unless you needed him to give more. Unless the battle needed him to give more in order for him to win, he would hold back as much as he needed to. He would hold back just enough every time so that he'd come out victorious. I can only name a few times when he didn't hold back. But even then, that was just because he was angry. That, or he actually needed to do so in order to win. In order to save, in order to protect. Naturally, being in with the fallen angels from time to time, he was given a device to erase people's memories. So the people that he did end up protecting, he wiped their minds of any of the supernatural activities that he had done, as to ensure society didn't go into mass hysteria. The next day, he did what anyone would do when they get their first girlfriend. He showed her off to his friends. So they were not shocked. Well, actually, yes, they were quite shocked, as he hadn't shown any interest in anyone, yet this girl somehow caught his attention? Got him to be a better person? Like, actually got him to date her. Like, what is it about her that made him want to be with her? What is it? Because whatever it was, they weren't seeing it. So they kept pondering as to what it could possibly have been. They wouldn't get close, though, as they thought he actually cared, which he made it seem like he did. But in actuality, he didn't care at all. Not in the least bit was he worried about whether this girl he was with lived or died. Well, actually, he'd much prefer it if she lived. It'd be easier for his plan to go smoothly if she survived. So I guess he did care a little bit. He moved on. And he moved on with his day, no one realizing that he was faking anything. Eventually, they went on a date, him and his girlfriend. He had yet to put his plan into motion, as someone was stalking him. But while they were on their date, he was planning on talking to her and using his slave crest magic, as he called it, to have her do a few things for him. But the person watching him never let up. Until the sunset. She had finally disappeared. And Izuku decided to finally tell. Now no one was watching. No one at all. And he was ready. And she was about to attack him. He held up his hand and she stopped. And she was thinking to herself, why am I stopping? I need to kill him. What is going on? Why can't I control my body? As he looks at her and says, I bet you're wondering why you can't do anything. Here's what's going to happen. Here's the thing. You didn't notice, but the first time we met, I used my magic on you. He points to his chest, and then points to her, and then points to his chest again, and kind of motioning to, look at your chest. As she does, removing the clothing, not that far down, and it's, on her neck, going down towards her chest, kind of. There's this draconic symbol of the Red Dragon Emperor. And she looks at it and she's like, what is this? You hadn't realized it, but I put that on you the moment we met. That day you asked me out is the day I put that on you. We now are no more than a servant, basically. You're like a servant, devil, except you're forced to obey whatever I say, and it's slowly altering your mind, slowly making you want to listen to my every word. Instead of forcing you to do so, it'll make you wish to do whatever I say. It'll make you feel like you need to listen to whatever I say. it'll make you, in a word, loyal to me, and only me. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to use some magic to make a fake you. That fake you is going to go to the fallen angels and do whatever you're doing. So you're going to tell me all of your plans so then I can create that fake clone of you, the fake you, and send her to do my bidding, as you aren't going to. I don't trust you enough yet for you to not try something. So she's going to do it for you. So you're going, but right now, you are going to tell me everything you know about the operation going on here, as well as Kokobeel's involvement. And she goes on to explain, reluctantly, how the fallen angels are planning on killing any sacred gear users in the area that would have the power, that could have had the power to stop them, and how they were planning on stealing someone's sacred gear that was known as Twilight Healing. Izuku shows no signs of any emotion, really, just staring blank-faced at her while she explains. And how Kokobeel was trying to start another three-way war because he was a warmonger and wanted war. And how she agreed because she wanted the Twilight Healing for herself, and that being the only reason that she wanted to do this. And after all the information was given, and I do mean all of it, all the details that aren't as important, he creates a fake version of her and sends her off to go to the rest of the fallen angels. Well, with some other information as well, that he had died, that Izuku had died. And he says, "Now then, I need you to drive a spear of light through my chest." As he takes out, as he remembers to that morning, when a strange girl in some sort of bat cosplay, as she had weird bat-like wings coming out of her dress, and a headband on her head as well that had little bat wings on it, whatever that was. But Izuku knew that this was a familiar passing out, well, flyers, let's call them, for the lack of a better word. Flyers is what we'll use. But they were really demonic circles, I guess you could say. Summoning circles, to be specific, to call upon a devil to grant your wish, or something like that. Izuku decided to take it because he had assumed something like this was going to happen. And everything was going according to plan. She threw a spirit light at him, not knowing that he wouldn't actually die, and being glad that she did. But he also told her to go to a certain address and stay there until he called her once again. That address was a safe house of sorts for Rainier to lie low. And because he had ordered her not to leave until he gave the word, she thought she was going to be stuck there forever as he lay dying, and she ran away. to the safe house that she had been ordered to go to. Izuku smirked and chuckled to himself as he used the demonic circle that he had gotten earlier that day to call Rias. Was acting as though he knew, as he thought he was going to die, wishing that he wouldn't die here today, which was also true. He didn't want to die, but he also didn't think he was going to die today. This was Rias' first test, you could say. If she was willing to help him with this, risk 8 of her pawn pieces for him, then she's gotten some of his respect, and she would garner some of his respect. If she didn't, he would just heal his wound and walk away like nothing happened. But she did revive him. Used all 4 of her pawn pieces, all 8 of her pawn pieces, to revive him as she needed to. His power was so much greater than her own that she had to use all pawn pieces, which, because of the setup that he had, because of the 2 connections he had in the underworld, in the world of devils, you could say, they were able to switch out all 8 of Rias's pawn pieces with mutation pieces, which is the only way it was possible for her to reincarnate him with his current level of strength. Even though he hides his true strength for most opponents, if not almost all of his opponents. And it would require all 8 pawn pieces to be mutation pieces in order for her to revive him, which they had easily swapped them out with the help of the 2 Maos that he had connections with, one being the one who created the evil piece system. As he wakes up the next morning to his alarm clock shutting it off, as he looks down at his wound, and Dre speaks with him in his mind, saying, "That was foolish. Very dangerous idea. But at least it worked out in your favor." And Izuku says, "Yeah, guess it did, didn't it? Well, Rias Gremory, let's see if you're worthy of my loyalty."